who are accustomed to occupying other countries, right?
Or the Chinese government. Take your pick.
Yeah, right.
I'm not particularly comfortable with either scenario.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with you.
Ethics don't seem to be a part of the ethical oil's concern after it gets to who's going to consume the oil and who's going to refine it. It's another curious aspect of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I think the big picture here is we need to really question when we hear these claims that the tar sands and these pipelines are good for the economy, quote unquote. I think we need to ask the question, whose economy? Because it really isn't about British Columbians or Albertans, and it's certainly not good for Ontarians if you buy into this notion of, which I think is well supported by a number of top economic organizations and independent economists around the world, of the Dutch disease, this tying of our dollar to the price of petroleum, artificially driving up our dollar, and thus hollowing out our manufacturing sector, and you folks in Ontario are bearing the brunt of that. And it's not just official opposition leader Thomas Mulcair that's made this position and been ridiculed by it. It's the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, some of the top respected economists and institutions in the world that agree with this, and this is a well-accepted principle that's been around for years and observed around the world in other petrostate economies. And so we need to question, what is the overall net economic benefit or loss to our country from becoming a full-on petrostate? And that is exactly the direction we're going. We have 3 major pipelines on the books that would double the tar sands if they went ahead. And the negative effects that we're already seeing from this industry, and that's not even counting the cost of the inevitable oil spills. And I think you guys are right. It's not a matter of if, but when. And look at the damage to the economy when you look at the BP spill or the Kalamazoo spill, et cetera. We're talking tens of billions of dollars. Look what it did to Alaska, the Exxon Valdez. Those communities still haven't recovered today. BC is a wilderness tourism economy. It's a salmon economy, a fishing economy. We rely on our nature. We had the Olympics here.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the Olympics. We were told we needed to do that to sell ourselves to the world. We put on commercials on our television. We spent millions of dollars promoting British Columbia to the world as a supernatural destination. Filled with orca and people fishing for salmon in streams and ocean kayaking and everything. All of that is put in grave, not risk, but I think certain calamity with these projects that are on the books. So when you look at the total economic picture here, we're not getting the jobs. We're seeing foreign workers already being imported to work in the tar sands. We're seeing unprecedented investment, lock, stock, and barrel ownership by Chinese and Malaysian and British and French companies of our oil and gas resources in a way that no other major oil country does.
Yeah, you make a good point, Damien. Not only do Canadian companies mine the tar sands, but it's going to be foreign workers who build the pipeline, and it's going to be the pristine British Columbia ecology that is going to bear the risk, the environmental risk. I don't know, for people that haven't been up in that area, I'm very, very familiar with the area by Prince Rupert and Kitimat that this pipeline is going to go to. This is a beautiful area of the world, and the inlet that these tankers are going to have to travel up is incredibly way too narrow for these things to navigate safely. And if a tanker should rupture in this area, the damage that will be done to the coast is going to make the Exxon Valdez look like not such a big deal at all.
Just really quickly too, I would mention that the only reason why they'd pick Kitimat is because it's less expensive, that there are other port options on the Vancouver coast that would probably be a lot safer, but because they're more expensive.
Yeah, I think I don't know if Damien, if you would agree. I think what you're going to see is a negotiated alteration in the course. I think they're going to take this pipeline to Prince Rupert because that inlet to get to Kitimat is not navigable by these tankers, not safely anyway. I think they're going to take this thing another 100 kilometers and bring it to a proper port that you're not going to have to wind through all these little channels to get to these rocky susceptible to extreme tides and storms, kind of areas. That's just my guess.
We've published articles to that effect. I don't disagree. I think it's speculation at this point, but it's very reasonable speculation. As any developer knows, if you want to build a 40-story tower or 20-story tower that's going to be controversial, you start off by saying you build a 40-story tower, and then you come out and act reasonable and say, well, okay, we've cut it in half now, taking into account the concerns of the citizens. And that could be very well the strategy here is to come back, and we're seeing right now a major negotiation going on. I think it's very staged and stage managed between the Premier of Alberta and the Premier of British Columbia over sharing of economic benefits to BC. The arguments we made, we're taking too great of a risk, we're not getting enough reward. But it's not, we're saying no to the pipeline, it's we need a better deal. And I think that moving it to Prince Rupert could very much be a part of that kind of renegotiation. But I also think that if that was the plan all along, they've bungled it pretty badly, because we've worked people up so much out here. It's galvanized First Nations and non-Aboriginal people all up and down the coast and around the province to such a point. It's created a whole movement around this issue. And British Columbia has been known to have an independent mind, I think probably second only maybe to Quebec in this country. We killed the Meech Lake Accord out here and the Charlottetown Accord. We killed a major project by Alcan, one of the biggest mining companies in the world, the Commano Completion Project up in that same neck of the woods near Kitimat. We have turned projects around before and killed them because we've built enough public momentum, and I feel like that's already been triggered here at this point. It might be too little too late to turn around and do this bait and switch and go to Prince Rupert. I think they've really awakened a giant here in the anger of the public, and I'm seeing it because I'm going to these hearings. I just came back from the coast, from Bella Bella, where the latest round of hearings happened, and I can tell you people are very fired up right now.
Yeah, unlike Alberta, BC is a province that the Conservatives aren't paying the same kind of attention to that they should be, because it's going to be a battleground province come 2015. The numbers aren't looking good for the Conservatives.
I really hope you're right, Damien. I think the Canadian people sure could use a victory over the Conservative agenda right now. We're suffering a lot of defeats at the hands of Stephen Harper and his oil lobby sugar daddies.
Look, one last thing here. Thomas Mulcair is reaping the political benefits of this right now, and so is our premier in waiting here in British Columbia, NDP leader Adrian Dix. He's up in the polls, the latest ones I saw, 48-23. I'm just absolutely killing his incumbent opponent here, Christy Clark of the Liberal Party, over this issue. It is. I think you can say that his tough stance against Enbridge has very much contributed to his popularity here, and it's contributed to her about face on the issue and trying to talk tough about it now, while still trying to cut a deal out the other side of her mouth. So there are real political ramifications for people that have taken this issue on. And the thing about Mulcair that was really interesting is I read an article in the Calgary Herald, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that said he's sounding more like a traditional PCer than Harper is. And they compared him to Peter Lougheed, who's made the same argument. Don't ship this raw bitumen at great peril to China, to the coast, and put it into tankers and export the jobs along with the refining. Build refineries here, take the risk out of that, create jobs in Canada. And this is really striking a note. And his talk on the economy here, it's uncharacteristic of an NDPer that they want to frame as being incompetent on the economy and on energy policy. He's sounding very reasonable, and he's getting a lot of traction in the polls of it. And I saw a poll recently for him where he was up 5 points over Harper, for whatever it's worth. So I do think that the political landscape is being reshaped right now in this country around these energy issues, and particularly around Enbridge. And if these guys aren't careful, we could see the unthinkable here and see this government toppled in the next election.
Well, I certainly think
let's really hope that's what happens.
Yeah.
We're really glad you joined us tonight, Damien, and you provided us with a lot of really great information. And I would just like to direct everyone again to the Common Sense Canadian webpage, which is at thecanadian.org, where you can read Damien Gillis's articles. And I really, really suggest them to everyone because they're very thought-provoking, they're informative, and they're just great articles. So thanks for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Damien.